Growing up, I wasn't a huge fan of difficult games. Sure, I played a lot of Mega Man, but those aren't that hard, right? Not like Ninja Gaiden or Castlevania hard. Despite your feelings on whether Mega Man games are hard, I regularly shied away from games that were overly difficult. Games that made me mad were games that I just never got into. As an adult, I've started playing games like this more and more, and I've enjoyed the challenge they bring and the payoff of that sense of accomplishment when you beat them. When emulation first got popular, I was finally able to play through these games without getting super frustrated by having to retrace through levels. Save states were a godsend. As I got better, the less I relied on save states, and by the time I got back to collecting and playing on physical hardware, I was more than up for taking on difficult games without the save state safety net. One of the first game series I decided to tackle when I started collecting again was Castlevania. Back in 2014, my tiny CRT I had dedicated to my game corner, I played through the first Castlevania until I was able to beat it. Then I took on Castlevania II, which is considerably easier in the gameplay department, but stupidly cryptic and hard to figure out what to do next if you aren't familiar with it. Then I picked up Castlevania III, and I kept hammering away at it. Then gave up. Then I picked up other hard games, Ninja Gaiden, Journey to Silius, Double Dragon, Zelda 2, and would come back to Castlevania 3 time and again, and just couldn't put that final nail in Dracula's coffin. Castlevania 3 is so hard, even compared to the original game. But just a few days ago, as of writing the script, I finally took down Dracula. I was inspired to finally try to do this by a recent success by my buddy Lumps the Clown. This guy puts together a yearly summer event where he subjects himself to torture while live streaming some of the hardest games possible. He was able to complete Castlevania 3, and I said, it's time. I popped that bad boy in, destroyed the first few levels, and then I started flailing like I always do. After a week or so of the video game equivalent of smashing a square peg into a round hole, I finally got it, just by sheer brute force and dumb hard-headed willpower. And I did what any gamer would do. I started dancing around the room just like I won the lottery. Castlevania 3 is a great game, don't get me wrong, but it pissed me off so much that I doubt I'll be reaching for it again in the near future. Castlevania 1? Sure. Super Castlevania 4? Absolutely. Castlevania 3? Man, no. Just no. I've spent so much time with it over the past few years just trying to complete it that I'm thoroughly burnt out on the game. So, Castlevania 3 takes place before the first two games on the NES. It's a prequel, which kinda confused me as a kid. Where was Simon? Trevor is cool though, even if he looks pretty much exactly the same. Of course, I never really rely much on story in 8-bit platformers, but I do have to point out the excellent intro. During 15th century Europe, there lived a person named Dracula. He practiced sorcery in order to create a bad world filled with evil. He began taking over the continent of Europe, changing countries from good to bad. I mean, the concept isn't bad, but that translation? Oh man. Horrendous. The game starts much like the first game. The graphics are a little bit sharper and the music is a bit more polished, but it feels very much the same. But then you're given the choice of which path to take, and then you get to meet up with various adventuring partners that each have their own special skills. You can only have one of these partners at a time, so choose based on your own playstyle. Sypha is a sorceress who has a low attack power and short attack range, but has some really awesome secondary abilities. Grant is a thief that is able to scale walls and ceilings, and moves quickly. And the famous Alucard makes his first appearance as well, but behaves more like Dracula from the first game than his Symphony of the Night appearance. But you can change into a bat and skip platforming segments? That's useful. One of the cool things about Castlevania 3 is that the majority of the game is not spent in Dracula's castle. Instead, Trevor travels across the countryside until he gets to the castle. It's kind of cool to see a little more variety across the stages this time around. Sure, Castlevania 2 showed us a lot, but Castlevania 3 is more easily compared to the original, right? The gameplay with Trevor is largely the same as it is with Simon from Castlevania 1. Slow movement, jumps that you commit to because you can't turn back while in the air, whip-thwacking action that gets better with upgrades, the same sub-weapons that are fueled by hearts and upgraded with Roman numeral blocks. But the level design is mostly improved this time around, and because of branching paths, there are more levels to tackle, and the addition of adventuring buddies makes some situations more interesting. But everything is very much completable with Trevor alone. The problem I have with this game is the use of enemies that have random patterns. I'm talking mostly about these damn ravens. Sure, they were present in Castlevania 1 as well, but they weren't abused as much. When you are near the end of a level with no useful sub-weapons due to deaths, it's super hard to get around an enemy that you can't predict where it will move. Those things swoop in on you just out of reach of your weapon, and then dive at you at some angle where you can't safely retaliate. And in later levels, this means losing a quarter of your health every time they hit you. This happens a lot in Castlevania III, and honestly just feels super unfair to me. Bat placement in this game is evil, especially right at the end of the last level when you're already having to time platforming across giant swinging pendulums. A bat will randomly appear somewhere on the screen and completely screw up your perfect run of the last level. If you get hit, it's still a huge bummer because Dracula has 3 forms, and if you die at one, you have to start all the way back at the last checkpoint until you game over, when you'll be taken back to the beginning of the level. These are just a few examples, but to me the enemy placement isn't nearly as genius as it is in the first game. Sure, there are some really hard sections of the first game, but the enemies mostly behave predictably in those situations, and eventually you can map out a pattern and master the obstacle. Certain enemy choices just make this impossible to happen in Castlevania III, and sometimes you're at the mercy of RN Jesus. That's random number generator for those of you who haven't been obsessively watching speedruns lately. See, the thing is, I've really enjoyed hard games over the last couple months to the last couple years, really. The ones that I all mentioned at the beginning of the video. Journey to Silius, Double Dragon, Ninja Gaiden. Lately I've been playing through and really enjoying getting my ass handed to me in games like Thunder Force 3 and Gradius 2. So it's not so much that I don't like hard games, because I do. It's just that, man, Castlevania 3 just really pissed me off. But it's still a great game. It's still an amazing game, an iconic game. I mean, it deserves all the accolades it gets, but just for whatever reason, after continually trying to beat it over the last couple years, I'm just kind of done with it. But a lot of other people love it, and I can completely see why they do. It's got great graphics, great music, really good level design, the awesome ability to kind of take different branches and different paths through the game, and 3 other extra playable characters that you get to play as. It's a really freaking cool game. I mean, I can't really say anything bad about it otherwise. It's just those stupid enemy placements in some parts of the game that really piss me off. And, you know, whenever I spent 2 hours on an aqueduct level at the very end of the game, you know, it's just kind of like, I'm done with this. I am done with it. So I beat it. I enjoyed most of it. It's just those last couple levels are just, too much. But that's all I got. Castlevania 3, definitely a game worth playing. A game that everyone should play if they're into, you know, retro video games at all. But other than that, I've got nothing. Wait! I do have something else. Just wanted to show you guys something. I'm going to help a friend out here. Jeff Wittenhagen has been putting out these books, and he's got, like, I've got 3 of them. And I have contributed to 2 of these. Not this one. This one's really cool, though. Lots of oddities, lots of Famicom stuff in this book. But these 2 I have contributed stories to. So the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Compendium and the Nintendo Entertainment System Compendium. Check these things out. You can find his website. I'll link it in the description. Definitely check out his works. They're really good, really high quality books. Just wanted to plug that at the end of the video. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, guys. Later.